Okay.
No, that's the best I could look, man. I'm sorry. It's the best I could give it. Only for 2 minutes. So
Well, here we are for another Cryptoholics episode.
2 weeks in a row.
I know. I'm feeling, I don't know, spry, man. I'm feeling
Is
spry.
that what it is? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
I thought maybe those checks were rolling in so much that we decided to speed up and bump
yeah,
it.
they are, man. My back is hurting trying to carry that big bag of money
Carry that
upstairs.
carry that big mail sack up the stairs. You count all your money in the bed.
I
Roll
know,
around
man.
on it.
Like Scrooge McDuck, man. Just dive right
Swimming,
into it.
buddy. Swimming in it. I know.
I don't know about you, but I'm excited about the guest tonight. I've been chatting with this fella for two years or maybe a little bit longer. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been
But
jealous. I just been in the wing of this deal because you know what I have that I want him to look at, and
mhm.
so pretty
So
excited.
let's get this real quick.
Here comes Cryptoholics. We got Bigfoot in the woods. We got aliens in the sky. We got ghosts in the attics. Here comes Cryptoholics.
Fighting too below.
Oh, shit, man.
Maybe Darby can help us figure out why Tim laughs like that.
Maybe I think it's definitely one of the world's greatest mysteries. So
Well, speaking of Darby, hello, sir.
Hello.
How's the green room?
Not very green tonight.
Okay.
no, you got to give Darby a proper welcome. You got to say, and here's Darby, and then
What? Oh, that's
I
right.
have the pause button, man. I got
Oh man.
gadgets, man. I got gadgets over here, and I don't know. Maybe it's the Cayman Jack that's talking. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've had about
Carry one of those around with me. My students would get a kick out of it.
I can send you mine. So I don't use it enough.
So I started talking to Darby through Daniel Benoit. He's the one that kind of he told me about you, and he was like, "Hey, you need to get in touch with Darby Orcutt." I was like, "Okay," because I got this dirt from a print that I dug up, and so since then I've been chatting with Darby. He's outstanding, man. I love talking with this guy and just getting into that brain of his and see what's going on. But
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, a number of folks have, over the years, there have been several folks who've been sending people my way to ask about, oh, I've got this, and how do I get it tested, or I've got that, and where should I send it, and so yeah, that which was part of the impetus for the study that I'm doing now was that I finally found after looking around there really weren't the places that I felt comfortable really recommending people in terms of commercial labs to send samples to that where I felt that they would really truly be able to recognize something interesting if that's what it were.
So you want to kind of talk about what's your Avengers team of scientists?
Yeah. So, so to make a long story short, I've been on faculty at NC State University for more than 20 years now. When I first started to start looking into the Sasquatch phenomenon, I had already had a long career as my primary faculty appointment at NC State is as a librarian. But I also teach, and I'm also heavily involved with research. And as a librarian, though, I don't do the sorts of things that people typically think of as library work. Most of what I do really is help put together and support interdisciplinary teams that tackle really tough real-world questions. And so these are folks that have expertise in one of them in this area, another in that area, another in a totally different area. And they have to not only find each other, hook up, figure out how to work together, but find out how to frame a research a research project or program that's going to address what each of them needs to be doing in their own area in order to advance knowledge. And so I've been doing that for a very long time. When I came to the Sasquatch phenomenon and looking at that, and then it was through time learning like what had gone on in this community, the sorts of questions that people had, the sorts of questions that people had for me in terms of, like I said, where do I send this? That I thought, you know, this is my background. This is what I do. Let me put together a team and actually look at not just potential evidence in this field, but let's look at things that are perhaps unusual. And that was that's one of the things that I think is really interesting about this. As I said, you get a team together and they each have their areas of expertise. Everybody has to have a hook for them and their career. For me, my curiosity about the Sasquatch phenomenon is what led me to put together this project. But for my colleagues, they have other goals. Now, certainly, you know, if we happen to find an undiscovered species, there's nobody going to be upset.
Yeah.
But the reality is that there are all kinds of wonderful things that we could discover, even apart from the idea of a Sasquatch. I have a couple of colleagues who are really interested in forensics work. One's a wildlife forensicist and really interested in thinking about how we come up with better techniques for identification of animals and identification of evidence that we don't really know what it is. I have colleagues who are really interested in training their PhD students. And here's the thing, PhD students in genetics rarely get to look at something that is a true unknown. They're generally looking at something that, well, they're looking at a small part of the genetic sequence, trying to look at maybe a particular mutation or a particular whatever it may be. They don't generally start out with, okay, here's the sequence. Now let's figure out what it even is and then go from there. So this is exciting. It's exciting for the PhD students, and it's exciting for the faculty, and it's exciting for me. And I'm coming to find that it's very exciting for the community of folks who are interested in Sasquatch, and so I'm grateful for that because the samples are coming from the public.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I've really enjoyed talking to you and talking about this dirt I dug up from this 5th track that we didn't cast, and just trying to figure out a good way to sift through it. And
yeah. Now, I will say, Shane, I'm really interested in that question. But in terms of what we're doing with the study presently, we're focusing on larger biological samples. So we're not doing an environmental DNA study.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we would normally do, is testing the dirt or testing water or samples like that. There's nothing wrong with that type of research. It's just that I think that's a much harder row to hoe at this point. And so if people do have samples, and I'm already being offered samples of potential hair samples, these handprints, the skin surface lipids that you see, this chalky white substance.
Oh yeah.
And even blood that is at least alleged to come from Sasquatch. So it'll be really interesting to see what these things are.
Well, I mean, and Shane knows, and I'm sure he's probably told you about the hair sample that I collected in 2020. And I've been sitting on this hair. I actually had two. I have one that's approximately 2.5 to 3 inches long. We had another one that broke off in the ground and is about an inch. Now, these weren't just random hairs that we just happened to walk upon. What happened was there was a footprint, and I actually was on the ground looking for dermal ridges in the footprint before we poured the cast, and I just happened to see these two hairs kind of in the middle of the foot, but on the edge, and they were pressed in the mud and just sticking up a little bit. So I extracted one, placed it in a paper envelope, sealed it, put the date on it, stuck it in another envelope, and then when we tried to do the second one, it broke. So that's this one that's only about an inch, and did the same thing with it, put it in an envelope, sealed it. We did send the small hair off to someone, and it really was very frustrating because I never got any of the data back from it. Even if he was to said, yeah, that came back as, a piece of lint or whatever it could have been, right? But
Right.
I have probably 40 emails and messages between this individual and I, and never anything other than I'll get it to you in a couple of days. I'll get it to you in a couple of days. And that went on for months and years, right? So I've been real careful with this last hair because I understand that once it's there, it's never coming back to me, right? It's gone forever. It's not like you could test it and send it back to me. So I've just been waiting for the right opportunity. And I talked to Shane about this, and I think we're here. I think you're the guy I need to give this hair to. So, but before I do, and I may ask you this because I don't have the equipment, I want to put it under a microscope and photo it. That way I have some type of record, at least some photos of it, because
Right.
I like to have that beforehand. That way, when you test this thing and you say, hey, Brian, hey, Shane, guess what? I'm coming back on your show to tell you that this is some unknown primate, right? Because I'm in my heart, Darby, I know this is what it is. Like, I just know, and I know it sounds crazy because I'm the one who found the hair. And of course I know, and I'm going to say that, but I really, and Shane can chime in here. I'm not always the guy that, hey, that's Bigfoot, right? I'm pretty hesitant in going there first, but I just know, like, unless this thing stepped on a red fox and tried to stomp it in the ground or something to make this, that could be that's the only thing I could think of, right? But I just think about, the way people talk about the foot and the way it could be, hinged, or, what's the word everybody used for the foot,
Mid-tarsal.
about the mid-tarsal break. And so I think of like a dog's foot, how it's got the hair between the pads, and I think about the possibilities of that, thinking, well, maybe there is hair that runs in that mid-tarsal break. Maybe that, as muddy as that is, maybe that would pull a hair out in that sticky Oklahoma clay. And so I don't know. I'm pretty positive that's what it is. And I would just like to have some photos of that hair, so that way when you come back and say, yeah, guys, this is a Bigfoot hair, this is an unknown primate, now we got also the photographic proof from microscope pictures. So I didn't know if that's something you guys could do, or if I needed to buy a microscope and try to do that myself. But I don't want to contaminate this thing. It's been sealed since 2018. Like, I don't look at it or anything like that. I mean, it went in there, and I didn't even use spit to seal it. You know what I mean? Like, I took a sponge, ran it under the faucet, and just lightly tapped it and then sealed it. Like, I was afraid to even lick the envelope, because I didn't want to contaminate anything. So
Yeah.
And I know I'm being ridiculous, but that's how valuable it was to me. And this thing's locked up. Like, it's locked away. Like,
I got you, Brian. No, and that's wonderful. And I think that's one of the things that was also one of my motivations for doing this as an actual study. And I think that's one of the things that folks need to hear, is that this is an actual university study. This is not, as has happened many times, I know, I'm not just saying, hey, I'm a professor at NC State University, and hey, I'd love to look at that. Let me take a peek at it. Let me tell you what I think, or let me have somebody look at it. I'm not doing that. This is an actual study. And so that's why there's the intake form that's there that asks for for information. That's why you'll receive a number that's your sample. You will receive results. Everything is set up officially. When you're sending samples, I mean, even to very well-intentioned faculty, I'll speak as university faculty. I know I can be absent-minded sometimes. I know that I can, I may have the best of intentions, but maybe I didn't answer that email in a timely fashion at all. But this is the difference. When it's within the scope of a study, there are procedures. It is set up. It is set up in a particular way. If I die, you'll still get your results because there are those kind of structures in place. And I'm not just making that up, because I actually talked with an investigator a couple of months ago who said, "Oh, I have these great samples I'd love to send you, but I sent them to this professor at such and such university, and I can't get a response from him." I said, "Well, let me try." Well, I had just as bad of luck getting a response because I found out that he had passed away. And because these samples have been given to him outside of a study, I'm trying to talk to the right people in the lab, but I can almost guarantee you, because they weren't part of a formal study, when they cleaned out, they probably just cleaned them out. So they're probably long gone. So this is the thing to understand, is that with a formal study, you're going to get actual results. Everything's going to be on the up and up. You're not reliant on even my good intentions. This is all a set procedure, and folks will get their results.
That's awesome.
Can I hand deliver this sample?
Well, what we're asking folks to do is we have put together an online form, and I've given you all a URL that you can share in your show notes or wherever. That talks just a little bit about the study, but particularly, most importantly, has a link to that intake survey. So if you fill that out, and again, nobody has to worry. A couple of folks have said, "Well, I'm not quite sure how to answer this question." Give it your best shot, because what we're just do your best job with it. If there's anything extra, there's a notes field. You can add whatever details you need to add. I'm going to follow that up with conversations with folks, because what we're doing is that as we get offers of samples, we're going to be prioritizing those. We can't suddenly test everything at the same time.
Oh my God.
So we have to do things. We have to prioritize them. So don't worry about if it takes me a little bit longer, or if I'm really quick. It may just be whenever where you are in the cycle. And then at that point, after that, we'll when we decide, hey, we're ready for it, you'll get information about how to submit it. And I think it's, people ask me all the time, what's the cost? Well, the cost is, the cost will be mailing the sample. We're not asking people to pay money for this or anything. We're a public university. We're interested in doing this work. We're interested in investigating things that are of interest to the public. So this is why we're doing this. Also, at that URL that I sent, there is a way, because some folks do ask me, they want to be a part of the study. They may not have a sample, but they want to be a part of the study in another way. So at that link, there is also a way that you can donate. You're donating to the university if you choose to do so. But again, no donation is required of folks, but certainly donations would be much appreciated and could really help us to to look longer and more deeply at a greater number of samples.
Excellent.
So, and I'm just going to go totally off the wall here because I don't know anything about DNA or anything like that. So when you do test my sample,
Mhm.
and it comes back and it shocks the world and it shocks this university, what are some possible scenarios from that? Like, what are we just going to look at this and say, is this going to come back like an unknown primate, and human type? I mean, what are some possibilities there?
That's a great question, and that's something that I thought about well in advance of this and discussed with the team from very early on, because because we want to be as open to a full range of possibilities as may be, and so in this case, obviously, I mean, one of the possibilities is that any given sample that we get could certainly be a match for a known species. So that one's obvious. But then when you get into the possibility that there could be an unknown species, or there could be an unknown population of a known species that may be at play here, those are things where we have to consider very carefully. For this study, we've drawn the scope as widely as we can. So one thing that I can say is that the things that I can't control in the study, there are basically four things that the team can't control with regard to the question that people are interested in. I mean, one, we can't control what animals exist in the world. Right? What species exist? We can't control what people find a sample of. We can ask for samples, but we don't control who decides to send us a sample or not if they find it. And then the probably one of the more frustrating things, of course, is that we can't control the quality of the sample in terms of DNA degrades. And it degrades faster under certain conditions and so forth. So you're never guaranteed with a real world sample that you'll be able to get enough genetic information to be able to tell with precision what the sample is. That said, the team is absolutely outstanding. So that was one of the things that concerned me with commercial labs, was that a lot of times what I was finding from the reports that people were sharing with me is that commercial labs were looking at something and saying, well, it looks like it's kind of a match for this one, and they would stop. This team is not going to say it's kind of a match for this, or worse, is not going to tell you it's a match for something unless we know that's a match to a very high degree, and this is why we say that. So those are the four things that we don't control. Now, you ask a great question. What is the possibility? What is the possibility that it would come back as if there is an unknown species known as Sasquatch, right? What if that does exist? What if somebody does find a sample? What if they submit it to the study? What if it's a quality enough sample that we can sequence it? Well, we're not going to get a result of a generic unknown primate. We may find that it's an unknown primate, but if we find that, we will know from the sequence exactly where it fits on the evolutionary tree. So, for example, there are some folks who say, "Oh, I bet you're going to find Bigfoot, and that it's a descendant of gibbons, some kind of gibbon." Yeah. Okay, well, if it is, and that's what it is, we will know that from the DNA. Somebody else might say, "Oh, I think it's Paranthropus," or "I think it's somehow connected with chimpanzees," or whatever. if it exists and that's what it is, we will know. That's the really fascinating thing about, if you're able to get those sequences, you're able to tell with anywhere from a fair amount to absolute precision where it fits in the tree of life. And so that, if there's an unknown species out there and we find it, that would be transformative. Absolutely. Personally, I think it's transformative enough for this question, just to have a credible team that's looking at this potential evidence, because there's so many people like you, Brian, who have had something that they feel good about, have had something that's really interesting, that looks interesting, that was found in interesting circumstances, and it remains potential evidence until it's looked at, and you haven't had a place to send that. So, I'm not the type of person to use this as hyperbole, but I've heard folks in the community start to use this word, and I see why they use it. This study is historic. This study is historic. It's a real study. It's a longer term study, and it's got the right team. So now is the time. If you've got something, now is the time to pull it out. I've talked with a number of folks who have looked at this, who have been hoarding up a sample or samples for a long time and holding on to them, and they are precious. I think that was something you said about how valuable this is to you. I knew I had the right team when at our first team meeting, it wasn't me who said this, but one of my colleagues who said, first of all, before we do anything, we have to make sure we have the right procedures in place, because we need to treat every sample that someone provides as precious. Oh my gosh, this is why I have the team that I have, is because these are people who get it, that this is important to you. Your sample is important to you. So we need to treat it with respect. You want to know what it is.
Sure, yeah.
So we need
to
balance this and get you that
information across the country to hand deliver it to you. That's how important it is. I'm seriously like,
well,
to mail
we can work it out. We can work it out.
Like I'm ready for you guys to just call me up and say, hey, Brian, we want your sample on Tuesday. And I jump in the truck and just take off, because I don't, like, for me, just to send it to you and go, hey, Mr. Postman, can you make sure this gets
yeah.
And then you call me in a week and go, hey, Brian, that's lost. Like, it was destroyed in the mail. I'd be crushed.
Fair enough, Brian. Fair enough. And I appreciate that. And you're right. That's going to have to be an option for folks to hand deliver.
And I wouldn't.
I'll make that happen
for the process or anything like that. I just will go, here you go, sir. Here's my baby. Don't mistreat her. Be good to her. Love her like I did, And then I jump in my little truck and drive on back. And then the whole way back, I'm just probably like this, calling everybody. Hey, we're about to see that Bigfoot exists, And
I'm already coming back.
See you on Good Morning America next week, Well,
it wouldn't be the next week, I don't think.
Well, yeah, you know what I mean.
Real science does take time.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe how long until you have results?
And it seems like you put a team together they have a lot of passion for this project, and that.
Well, like I say, they have a lot of passion for. They have a lot of passion for looking at unknowns. They have a lot of passion for the sorts of outcomes that could come from this, and the multiple sorts of outcomes. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, even as I said, even apart from the Sasquatch question, okay, there are other things that we could discover. There are other, species. There are maybe we find that, okay, these sets of hairs that look really odd, that we're not quite sure what they are under a microscope. Maybe they're all bear hair, but maybe we've learned something about bear hair. One of the things too is that I really think you're going to see this team developing some new forensic techniques. One of my colleagues was actually just in the news for a new forensic technique that her lab discovered last year. So, no, I mean, these are the folks. I mean, these are folks who are like me, are curious about things, and interested in discovery, whether that's the discovery of a new species or whatever wonderful things that we might learn.
So exciting.
What does it mean, like, and I know you probably can't really explain this, but like maybe just to you, what does it mean if you get solid evidence and you find a DNA sequence, like say here in Oklahoma, and then somebody in, I don't know, Oregon sends you something and it's a match, like, and you start to see that this is some form of prominent. What does that mean for the science community if that is discovered?
Well, what it means is this: is if we got that, let's say that is the result that we get. We find that, okay, there's an unknown primate. It fits wherever it fits on the tree of life, right? Mm-hmm. And we found DNA in, what'd you say, Oklahoma, mm-hmm. and maybe we found other in Minnesota, and maybe we found another one in British Columbia. Maybe we just found 3. 3 is plenty to prove that, yes, there is an undiscovered species out there, and this is it. So, scientifically speaking, you've proven species at that point, if that's the outcome. Now, of course, that's just the start of a lot of questions, because folks would want to see, okay, we found the DNA, but wow, we want to document this species in the wild. Yeah. We want to see what it's like. We want to know how many there are. We want to know what the behaviors of the species might be. I mean, there's all kinds. What does it eat? Where does it sleep? Mm-hmm. There's a million questions. But the DNA is the most important. The DNA is the gold standard. And I say this in all seriousness. You'll continue to hear people say, "Oh, well, science needs a body. Science needs a body." Yeah, we don't. We absolutely don't need a body. If you think about it, DNA is a tiny little part of a body.
That's true.
But here's the thing. If somebody brought a Sasquatch body right now and said, boom, dropped it on the lab table and said, here's Sasquatch. Before anybody says, oh my gosh, Sasquatch is real, what would they say? Oh, well, what does the DNA show that it is? Mm-hmm. That happens. Everybody can say, well, it could be a weird looking person, it could be, it could be a mutated whatever. We don't know. DNA is the standard in today's world. And so, would there be maybe, 1% of scientists who might say, oh, well, we still need the body. Sure. Right. But for the overwhelmingly, the scientific community would accept the genetic evidence if it were shown.
Awesome. Wow. And then that opens a whole new world.
That opens an entire new world. But, again, that's speculative at this point. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether the Sasquatch phenomenon has an unknown species underlying it. or not.
Yeah,
I'm
that's what I was
open
going
to
to
the
ask you,
idea,
Darby.
but
So I was listening to this pod today, and they were talking about some hair samples this gentleman got, and they actually had a little bit of tissue at the bottom. You know, he really got,
okay.
you know, he really got it. But it came
Okay.
back as somewhat human-like, and
Okay.
and then he began to talk about how, I don't know, like 30, 40 years of this, and scientists are seeing, you know, these great samples, but kind of has a human tag to it. Do you think they're just like giving up and like, oh, that's just a human? You know, I mean, how are you going to address that kind of thing?
Well, it's possible, and I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why we have that on our radar. Certainly, to not just take a quick peek at something and say, "Oh, it looks kind of human. Let's stop." No, we're gonna really thoroughly analyze each sample to the extent that it needs to be analyzed in order to determine with a high degree of certainty what it is. And I only say a high degree of certainty because that's a technical thing that scientists say. So no scientist will ever tell you that something is 100%.
Yeah,
That's not how scientific method works. But essentially, you should hear that as when I say we tell you what it is, you can take that to the bank. That's
awesome.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, I was going to say, would that be the same as when you test like chimpanzee, because aren't they so similar to ours?
With the what?
But like if you test a chimpanzee, right? Chimpanzee and humans are pretty similar in DNA. So
they're pretty similar.
Yeah, so say if you only went 50%, go, oh, that's too much like a human. That's nothing. I mean, would the same kind of thought process though until you test it completely and go and run the whole and I don't know what I'm talking about, Darby. I'm just a dumb old dude from Oklahoma. But until you run it all and say, oh, well, here's that 2% difference. It's not a human, it's a chimpanzee. What if Sasquatch is 99.5 human, you know? And then you get to that very end and you go, wait a minute, there's something different here.
Yeah, you really got to make sure. But I mean, that said, I mean, you probably share, Brian, about 40% of your DNA with a head of lettuce. Because all life on Earth is genetically connected.
Sure.
But it's pretty easy for a geneticist to tell the difference between lettuce DNA and human DNA. So yeah, I mean, it's there. That's the thing. I mean, it can sound like, okay, there's a small amount of difference, but that's why you really have to have the right people working on it. But the right people working on it can absolutely see the difference. I do want to get back to your question, Shane, because I would really love if you're able to later send me some information about that analysis that you heard about, because I will say this: I have been, for the last several years, as I've been putting this project together, I've also been trying to gather as much information about specific genetic analyses that have been conducted of alleged Sasquatch samples as possible. And one of the things that I have found again and again and again and again is that the overwhelming majority of these stories that I hear of something that was analyzed, there was actually nothing analyzed behind it. And I say that because I'll tell you, I have heard from people where they say, oh, well, my friend found this hair and he had it analyzed and he got such and such result. And I'm like, wow, that's really interesting, because I'm trying to track down who's done analysis. And, so what's your friend's name? Okay. Then I go to the friend. Oh, no, it wasn't me. It was my other friend. I was telling about my friend. Okay. What's your friend's name? Okay. I go there and I track these back, and more often than not, I get to something like, oh, you know, yeah, what I was telling him was I found a hair in the woods and it looked like the hair that they analyzed on Monster Quest, and they got such and such result.
Holy shit.
And I swear to you, no fewer than a half dozen times, I had different stories with a totally different telephone tree. I had a half dozen of these times that it traced back to just one episode of Monster Quest
Holy smokes.
where somebody was talking about that. But the thing is that these rumors get going, and I found that so many of these, and so it's really interesting because it's happened again and again and again. I would say at least 95% of the stories that I have tried to track down, I have gotten to the point where I have been able to absolutely determine that it was something that was seen on a TV show, or, you know, like say, oftentimes Monster Quest, but some other TV shows as well. In one case, it tracked back to a work of fiction. These are, you know, people pass these stories along, and, you know, I have only in a very few cases have I been able to find the person who said, yes, I sent this to the lab. Yes, I got a report back.
Wow.
And in only like a couple of cases have I actually had them, they have the report and could share the report with me. So I think, you know, you have to be very skeptical of the stories that you hear. You have to be very skeptical of the media coverage. You have to be, you know, very skeptical of that, because there's so much. There's this idea, for example, that so many samples have been tested. Nope. And in fact, for the most part, even things that have supposedly been tested there isn't sequencing data available for it. There isn't a way to check on the conclusions that were drawn. I saw one commercial lab report that somebody paid a lot of money for, and it really doesn't give you any data. It just says, it looks like this.
Oh, wow.
So I can't, you know, I mean, that's one thing. I mean, that's not the way science works. Science, you show your results, and then others can look at them, can reanalyze them, and make sure they get the same results.
Gotcha.
So is there anything I need to do with my hair before I bring it, or just let it be?
You need to fill out the online form. That's
I'll
what you need
definitely do that. That ain't no problem there. I'll do that right away. I just didn't know if I need to.
No, that's the most important thing. And, you know, when you fill out that form, we do ask you to decide, although you can change your mind. We do ask you to decide, you know, do I want to be absolutely public? I want you to say, hey, Brian Houlihan found this sample, or, you know, folks can submit things completely anonymously. We'll never say that they were even involved with the study, but they will still get, personally, they will get the results for the samples they submit, because different people have different opinions. Some people don't want to be, you know, they're very curious about something they found, but they don't want to be affiliated with the subject. And other people are like, my goodness, I want to go down. I want the world to know that I found whatever it turns out.
And that was going to be another question of mine too, as far as the legal aspect of things. So the results of this test, DNA testing, do you guys own the results of that, or does the individual who submitted it own the results?
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's anything really to own there. I mean, the results are the results.
Sure.
We will share them with folks. We do intend to to publish
Yeah.
out of this study, whatever we find.
Well, it's just,
That's cool.
We will have things there that are going to be interesting and worth publishing. But yeah, I mean, we're not. I mean, no, I mean, people. If folks are submitting samples, they're going to get results. Again, I'm not promising exactly when.
Sure.
Real science takes some time.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at all aspects of it because I'm like, if you guys, and I'm using this just as a TV deal or something, and here comes the paper and it's printing out and it says Sasquatch for 100%, which I know that's not how it works, but let's for fun, let's say that.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah,
So,
just for fun, let's say. All right.
Does Darby and the scientist crew they run and they run with it public, or do they say, okay, John Doe, here is your results. You choose to go public with it. You do the whatever you want to do with it. But I know you guys are saying that you're going to publish it. So I'm guessing in some side.
We are going to publish it, but that doesn't mean that you can't talk about the results or anything like that. There are no non-disclosure agreements.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we've already had our fill of NDAs, haven't we?
Yeah, that's what I was leading to. Is like, like here's your results after you sign this NDA. You know what I mean? That's what I was.
No. I mean, the thing is, I mean, it's funny because with real research science, the only time that NDAs ever really come into play are if you're specifically trying to monetize something, which is not what we're doing. I mean, I don't know what we'd monetize. We're curious. We're curious. So if you're trying to monetize something, there may be an NDA, and that's usually when a scientist might be working with a scientist in a university might be working with a scientist in a corporate lab, for example, and the corporation wants to make money on some product that they produce together, and so certain of the results may be open and certain may be covered by non-disclosure. But again, that's a capitalist thing. That's not a science thing. The only other time that I, as an academic, would even sign an NDA is, if, and this is not what this study is about. We're not attached. Let me say, we're not attached to any media production. But I have been interviewed for media productions before, and it is absolutely fine. I'll sign an NDA saying, hey, I'm not going to talk about the interview that I did until after the product airs, right? And that again is pretty standard because somebody's investing a lot in making a documentary or making a whatever, and so they don't want you to maybe share everything ahead of that. But neither of those are applicable here. We're certainly not asking anybody to sign NDAs.
And I just mainly want to bring that up too, like for people that are watching this, it may be somebody's thought, because a lot of people are influenced by money in this, right? There's a lot of Bigfoot's big business. Like, let's be honest, there's tons of money to be made. And so somebody sitting at home could be watching this going, man, I got this clump of hair that I grabbed off the back of Bigfoot and yanked out of his back as he's running off, but I don't want to send it nowhere because, I may have to do an NDA or I may not be able to use that evidence to propel my career in the Bigfoot world, so that's why I wanted to kind of air that out in case somebody is watching. They could say, oh, okay, he's going to give me my results regardless, and I can do what I want with those results. They may stick that clump of hair in an envelope and send it to you tomorrow. You never know. So, I
hope they will.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
Species.
Well,
no, absolutely.
I filled out the survey. I know you guys aren't really getting into eDNA or whatnot, but man, I just still think that when they leave a footprint, there's got to be like some kind of skin cells or something coming off of that. I mean, we skin cell up our environment in our house every day, and we have to
Right.
clean it once a week, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, that is, yeah, Shane, as you know, because we talked about this
yeah.
previously, I'm very interested in that. And I think
Yeah, I know.
that is something that I think that is somewhere where we might go in the future. We're not looking right now at that because it is a long, laborious, effort intensive, and expensive process to analyze those type of samples. And here's the thing: if people do have really good hair samples, if they have skin samples where the hair came out and there's skin attached, if somebody happens to provide bone or tooth, or this blood turns out to be interesting, then what would happen is that, if and those are the questions you're asking me, if there is an unknown species that we find, then what happens is if we found that genetic sequence, we know what makes that species unique versus all other life on Earth. Now we can much more easily look at the dirt samples and very quickly then pull out whether or not that particular species is there. And I think that's the thing. I mean, folks are really interested about environmental DNA, and it's great. But when you're talking about an unknown species, it's very difficult because we don't know what to look for. And what most people don't realize is that the wonderful, amazing things that are happening with eDNA right now, it is still the case that almost all eDNA studies are looking for specific known species, so they know exactly what they're looking for. And so it's like if you had a really big manuscript, you have 5,000 page manuscript, and you're looking, if you're looking for a known species, it's like, okay, I've got that manuscript, I digitize it, and then I can do a word search in there for that one 5-letter word. Great. But if you don't know what word you're looking for or what 5-letter sequence, then you'd have to go through the entire manuscript, and you'd have to figure out what in that manuscript isn't a word.
Right.
We already know.
Yeah. No,
and so, you see what I'm saying. It's a very, it's not impossible to discover a known species that way, but wow, that's a hard road to hoe.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Cool. No, I think I'm excited, man. I'm totally excited for you guys. They're talking about UFOs and stuff on the news right now. Like, I mean, let's just crack it open. Let's just blow up everything. Let's just get it all
roll it all out. Roll it all out. UFOs, the Bigfoot. Let's just get it all out.
Let's just get it going. Just come on, people.
Share the truth. Share the truth.
Oh, man.
Well, I've never been involved with the UFO or the UAP studies. I mean, like everyone, I've heard some of the stuff with some curiosity, especially the New York Times, and the and then the reporters from the New York Times story breaking the more recent story. It's interesting stuff, but it's utterly different than the question of the Sasquatch phenomenon. I have to say, there've been a couple of folks who like raise eyebrows and they're like, "Ooh, why are you doing this now?" As if this is part of some big government disclosure.
Oh,
I'm like, well, we're doing it now because I got curious. And it's funny. I mean, it's, and Shane, because we met a few years ago. I've been planning this study for years. I've been to get the right people on, to go through all the paperwork and the ethics board approval and everything else with the university. And this is all, it's very important because I wanted to have this study be, I saw someone just this last weekend, in fact, who had found an interesting sample years ago. And it said, Darby, I want to send this to you. I want your folks to look at this. And I'm like, hold on to it. I didn't want to be that individual who took something outside of a study and just, and something happened or whatever. Wait. But now is the time.
Yes. The
So,
time has come.
Right.
yeah, so this has been in the works since before there was any UAP disclosure. So there's no no connection.
Oh my gosh. Well, we're getting close to, but are there actual samples that Bigfooters will actually send to you?
I'm sending mine.
Yeah.
Sending mine. And Shane knows how much this thing means to me. Like,
You know what? I hadn't even seen it.
exactly.
That's
Because
that's
I
how
don't
Brian
want to
catches
pamper
it.
it. I don't want to just. It's not like something you could have a party and a bunch of guys over and you go, "Hey guys, look at this Bigfoot hair," and you pull it out and you ruin it. You know what I mean?
just
Like
blow
everybody's
dried it,
looking in
man.
it, sneezing in it, and
Yeah.
and then it's ruined, right? So it's there. I promise you, there's a picture of it before I pulled it out of the mud. So there's that photo of it, but it's not something that I just let everybody look at. Hey, hold this Bigfoot hair and let them look at it. And I'm super protective of it. I really am.
Yeah, and you should be. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, and that's, like I said, that's how I knew I had the right colleagues, because they were right on top of that. And I think this is, will people send samples? I hope they do. I know that we've had some really potentially interesting samples that have been offered already. There are some folks. In fact, I was just talking with someone a few days ago, Brian, who's just like you, who has been holding on for a long time for the right opportunity, and now is like, wow,
Yeah.
I'm gonna offer this.
I'm excited.
So I like I say, I can't control that other than to try to put people's minds at ease that yes, we're going to treat your baby as if it were our baby. Yes.
Thank you. That deserves a round of applause.
I know, man.
Yes, I love my board.
Oh my gosh.
I'm such a geek.
Someone take that board away from Brian.
Take it away. Someone take it away. Stop me. The madness.
Well, Darby, do you have anything else you want to say before we kick off? And I go.
Well, just thank you for sharing that URL with your listeners, watchers, and I think just please do continue to pass the word to those who may have interesting, unusual samples, because we can't do this without the community providing these. So this is a team effort, and y'all are part of the team.
All right.
I'm excited. I'm gonna fill out my deal tonight.
Oh,
fantastic! Look forward to it, Brian. Thank you.
I've been waiting for this conversation with us.
Okay.
And I'm sold. I'm sending it. So.
Well, Darby, man, I really appreciate you coming on, man. I really do.
Thank you so much.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And I'll keep in touch.
and I'll see you when you're ready for my sample.
Absolutely.
All right, buddy.
All right.
You got it.
See you, Darby. That dude's cool, man.
Yeah, very cool. So, and like I said, I've been waiting for this moment because I wanted to ask him some of those questions, as far as what can I do with this? Is it still my results? Is it my, do I have the legal rights to this thing? Because you never know. I mean, we got wrapped up in a TV deal, right? And it kind of went weird on us. But like, say that comes around again, and we have this, You know what I mean? Like, I want to make sure we're able to use that, and I'm not saying I'm trying to use it to get rich, but whatever.
No, I know.
But you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
if it creates opportunity for you and I don't want to limit myself.
Well, if an opportunity shows itself, I know definitely we're going to be a lot more careful.
Yeah.
In what we're getting into.
Yeah.
For sure.
And also what we sign. So.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. Couldn't even do our show for a while.
I know.
The biggest thing.
Shame on you, I&E Entertainment.
Yeah.
I said it. I said it.
What channel was that on?
I don't know, man. They do everything for Discovery and you name it. Oh, Alaskan Killer Bigfoot, I believe, is one of their
main show.
Yeah.
And it really bothers me, and we're totally free and clear to talk about these things now. But it really bothered me.
We just need to do a whole show on that whole experience.
You think we should?
As a public service announcement to
just
anyone.
Let it go. Just
let it ride.
Air all the dirty laundry that we witnessed, and that the money couldn't change us.
That's right.
We walked away from it. We're like the Dave Chappelle of Bigfoot.
Oh my God, I love that.
Right? I mean, they're standing here with this money waving at us, and we're like, we can't.
I don't think so.
We cannot. And it just goes against like other things that like you got accused of a few years ago with the footprint.
Yeah.
And like if we were motivated by money, folks, we'd be on TV right now. We'd be in season 2, season 3. There you go. You know what I mean? And like,
yes,
maybe we should just talk about it.
Yeah. We'll do it.
Let's do it.
Because I mean, we've already had a great show with our main man, Darby.
Yeah.
Man, I do.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Yeah.
Oh no, not Jay.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, you might be rubbing off on us a little.
Yeah, maybe.
And Can Squatch, we appreciate you, dude, for always coming on.
Oh yeah, this dude's always on.
Every show, man. He's on here giving, chatting it up, and we appreciate that a lot. And the backstory, let's just do it. Let's plan it out.
We'll get into it. It's fun.
So there's money in boogering. Believe it or not, there's big money in boogering. So
yeah, you got to give up more than
you got to sell your soul.
Pretty much.
I'll tell you that right now. Yeah, full disclosure. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, man.
All right, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
All
hey,
right,
one more time.
Okay.
So corny.
All right, man.
All right, see you.
Later, bro. Oh.